Welcome to the Focus Schools podcast, Leading for Impact. My name is Brett Bishop, and I'm excited to be joined, as always, by my good friend Kathy Crum, who's going to introduce herself and also our guest for today. How are you, Kathy?
I'm great, Brett. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Kathy Crom. I've been working with Focus Schools for a long time and have the privilege of working with Jamie Roundtree and Rantoul Public Schools this year. So, Jamie, can you tell us a little bit about your role there and maybe any kind of recent experience leading up to this?
Jamie Roundtree, been in education since maybe 98, 99. Started out as a building sub, and next thing you know, you end up the director at the district level. Like, how did I get from there to here? And this is my second year in Rantoul. I've worked in a couple districts before this, one up in the Chicago area, and then I was in Champaign for a number of years, and just excited about, this new journey that I've been on.
Okay, well, thanks, Jamie. So I wanted you to hear from Jamie because the topic of this podcast is building strong leadership capacity to implement change, and Jamie really talks about that all the time. So to begin with, I want to just go back to our framework, which really is what we live by, and then I want to talk a little bit about how Jamie has used that framework to help him. So the first two things in our framework are to strengthen leadership and empower teams, then to build a culture where people belong. Next is to utilize an internal accountability system to know how we're doing every 6 to 8 weeks, committing to a targeted learning focus, implementing best practices, constructing a targeted PD plan, partnering with families and stakeholders, and optimizing our resources. And what we've learned from working with schools across the country and districts across the country is that when they use this framework, this is sort of the how to whatever the what is that's going on. So, Jamie, this is year one in Rantoul. And as Jamie said, he also had experience with focus schools in another district. So, when he was able to come to Rantoul, he was able to bring this with him. And so, what he's done so far is in the first two areas, strengthening leadership and empowering teams. Number one, brought our training in and is present. He and the central office are present at all the trainings with the ILTs. He's very supportive. And already in year one, Jamie has established a district ILT team, which I really applaud him about. The district is leading the way with the target and learning focus. They created theirs first, and they're also working on a SMARTY goal so that they can develop their own internal accountability system. There's a targeted PD plan, and I think one of the things that's been most impressive is the optimized resources part. Jamie was able to they were able to put their resources so that the people have time, they have the money to do the things that they need to do with what little money we have right now, and they have the support of the district. So it's a system was put in place before everything even started. And so Jamie and his team, looking at the scores, one, they brought in focus schools and the focus, and they changed an instructional model. They brought in a brand new instructional model. And they did these two things side by side at the same time. So, and Jamie, when you listen and talk about this, you're going to understand his thinking about it. So, Jamie, can you tell us a little bit about what you were thinking? What were you thinking when you did that?
You have to spend your first year like, okay, let me figure out where we're at, right? What are the conditions right now, so I can start to build connections. And last year was really prefaced off of MTSS. I want you to come in and reestablish MTSS, which every district, right, I've ever been in, every administration I've ever worked for, every school has struggled with what is MTSS, it used to be RTI. And so last year I just kind of evaluated, assessed, okay, here's what we have, here's what we don't have, here are the misunderstandings, here are the disconnects. But we needed something to ground it in. And because, right, learning MTSS for the sake of learning MTSS, we've all heard it, seen it in different variations, and I don't think it was going to be as effective. And so I had this idea of, what probably one of the most important things in my experience is that that I've seen get you your biggest bang for your buck is where I think a lot of elementary schools, which right transitions to middle school, struggle with is literacy, right? Just our kids have to know how to read. Everything, is based on print literacy, and we got to figure out a way to get these kids to code. And so, I grounded myself in that, and I just kind of kept planting seeds all last year. This is what we're going to focus on. This is what we're going to focus on. What does this look like when you think about MTSS? And so then really things kind of came to this point where we had a lot of opportunities to delve into it. And the district, our board, superintendent, were bold enough to say, we're going to do some school restructuring. So we restructured the schools, right? Went from 4 K-5 buildings to 2 K-2 buildings and 2 3-5 buildings. And from a leadership lens, you're looking for opportunities where, hey, okay, this might be a chance for us to engage in something where change is already taking place. And since we're changing, let's change what we're doing, not and how we're doing it from a different perspective. So that sort of presented itself, and you're like, oh man, this is really cool. We can shift. We're going to move people around. We can do things differently. So I was ideal. Last year we had started planting seeds for, hey, I want to do some different things with our master scheduling. I want to, we had done a study on the science of reading, shifting the balance with a book study we did. And so things were all like all these little seeds have been planted, right? So you're just like watering them, going around trying to, turn them, put them in the windowsill so they can get a little bit of sun, feed them a little bit. And those things were all planted. And so then it came time for, all right, now we got to roll it out, right? And that's the part where I saw, I probably didn't do, I won't say I didn't do my best work, because I think part of it brought out some of my best work. But, it was really hard because we were asking teachers to do a lot of change. I mean, you got this structure change. Now we're going to introduce this literacy framework, which is grounded in the science of reading. And this was a district that was, making the shift like everyone else, right? We were trying to move on from balanced literacy into this new approach. We also changed the PD schedule, we changed the master schedule. We were now asking teachers to share kids and collect data. I mean, it was just a lot. And so it rolled out all at once. And I think that, in hindsight, I would have done it differently, but it was actually my team that pushed me. One of my coordinators was like, because I'm the type of person like, oh, let's give it a year, kind of get a feel for things. And she was like, if we don't do this now, we're going to waste a year. And I was like, you're probably right, and I needed that push, I've worked with Brett, and Brett was always like, the time is now, Jamie, right? Like, we can't wait. Like, I know, these kids got to learn how to read, And so, just building off of that, it was a risk, right? How far can we push? I'm new, I'm still building relationships, but those are leadership lenses that you have to remind yourself of. And you're, I don't, you guys might be familiar with Leadership on the Line. It's a book, and you just talk a little bit about getting to the balcony, but you also got to touch down the dance floor, And so I was in the dance floor a lot, but getting up to that balcony to remind myself of, hey, these are things that are happening. So, okay, these pockets over here, they're not really dancing. You got our wallflowers over here, and you got this same core group that is the only ones on the dance floor dancing, and they're occupying all the space. So, you're trying to get a feel for everything and sort of, but then also in a leadership role, you're responsible for other leaders, that are there, above you, however you want to say it, that you work for, you work with, and you have to work that angle of it too, right? So you have to, how do we get all this together? And so I think that was something that pushed me to say, I think we can take on this challenge, and I have a solid team around me. This is by no means the Jamie Roundtree show. I actually have a lot of really, really good people around me, really, really smart, and knowledgeable, and also supportive of my leadership style, and the other part, So yeah, it was, just kind of feeling all of those things out. But all of these things are happening. And the one thing I recognize, and I think that I find most valuable in my sort of new lens in education, which is this idea around leadership and the importance of leadership, and not leadership as a title, not leadership as a role, as a hammer, but much more as this experience that you are taking on. And more importantly, how do I grow leadership, right? How do we grow leadership? Because nothing's sustainable without, really solid leadership.
Well,
So that was in the back of my mind. As all these things are happening, I'm thinking like, okay, we got to bring this all together. Well, what better way to bring it together than to talk about, give it context of, okay, we're rolling out all these things. I want to focus on literacy and teaching kids to read, but we're trying to implement MTSS, but all of it needs context. And same thing with the leadership. It was like, okay, we've got all of these things happening. We need leaders. It can't just be district. It can't just be building administrators, but we need teacher leaders, right? And how do we start to grow the capacity of that while also growing the capacity of our building leaders to understand your responsibility is to grow leadership, not just manage, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things that was interesting to us too. Is you're implementing the notion of ILTs, and that you're talking about building leadership. How's that? How are the ILTs doing? How's all that going in terms of building the leadership in the schools?
It's a work in progress, but I am exponentially blown away by what the teachers and the students and the administrators in this district have been able to do and willing to step in and take these risks with us, and so we've got ILTs at every space. Even our pre-K has ILT. All 4 of our elementary schools have ILTs. Our middle school and our alternative school all have ILTs, and that was key for me to say, okay, this is an opportunity for us to say, hey, all these things are happening. Not I have to lead it, not the superintendent has to lead it. We have to lead it, And so you start to tap into those spaces to say, all right, who wants to be part of this leadership? You're already in these roles, right? Now we're going to formalize it a little bit and give it structure. And focus schools haven't had the experience was like the perfect, I don't even know what you call it, like foundation to ground it in, because it applied to all of it, right? You need to lead the K-5 restructuring. You need good leadership to implement, the new literacy framework. We need leadership to, help redo and repurpose our SIP days and professional development time. We need leadership. And not to be a boss, not to be the I gotcha or drop hammers, but much more to be like, okay, how do you help reframe it for folks? How do you help, grow them to say, we're not looking for the outcome, we're looking for you to engage in the process. And I think that's what's been powerful about the ILTs as I've worked with, Kathy and Tracy and Keith. Big shout out to them, because I they have been so accommodating and making this experience about our needs and not what is supposed to be done. And so tailoring it to the needs of our students, our staff, our different leadership, styles that exist amongst the different leaders and where they are on that continuum of having these things. That's all involved in this. And you are from a, 30,000 foot view, you're like, whoa, okay, like how do we keep all this together? But the focus schools process has really helped us because it allows individuality, right? It's all tailored to where you are, what your focus is in your building, but we come together and have this experience collectively that allows us to build off of one another, challenge focus schools. They bring in ideas that we go, like that, don't like that. You guys have been really, really instrumental in helping us understand that what you're doing for us is what we need to be doing for our leaders. And that's what our leaders need to be doing for our staff. And then ultimately the staff is creating that same experience for the student.
So one of the things, sorry, I interrupted, but one of the things that has happened along the way, so as those two things have gone side by side, your new instructional model and working with, you're building your ILTs, building the leadership. I just really love how you talk about creating an experience of leadership for everybody. So,
Mhm.
however, and yes, and you guys have already had some gains in your data this year, some successes. Number one, your ILTs are looking better for sure, but who
Yeah.
cares as if the results aren't there, right? So
Mhm.
you got to present at the board and talk a little bit about the gains that you're seeing. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I think, so right now we're in the process of kind of working on Smarty goals, which is kind of um haven't had the experience, I understood that coming in, but I had to have some way of measuring. We're implementing all these things. What's the impact, right? You have to have something to say, hey, are we making an impact on this? So our team decided, excuse me, we really want to measure the impact because this is literacy framework. It's primarily around word recognition, which is foundational, right? Decoding. Students work on that continuum of decoding. And how do we measure that? The success of us implementing, all these different things. And I wanted to get back to this idea, of our teachers feeling success because we've spent years now trying to fix things with intervention, right? We want to intervene our way out. But I say we can't really intervene or create acceleration until we know we have a solid system that actually can provide students with a year's growth. Like if we can't move a kid, whether they are fourth grade reading at a first grade level, we can't move them from that first grade level to the second grade level in a year, then how are we ever going to even say that we'd have to give this kid a chance to accelerate and catch up? So that we grounded ourselves sort of in that idea. Can we create a system that gets us 80 to 90% of our students making 1 year's growth? So we looked back at, previous data and said, hey, this is what happened in the past. I think in the past we were maybe around 54% of our students made their typical growth for a year. Well, right at the time of the board meeting, it was really half a year. So we're looking at a half a year's growth. And yeah, the shift and the change we saw in overall was probably from 54% to 67% of our students made their half year's growth. We're excited. In about a month, we'll see how the whole year went. And things look promising, but that was huge for us and for our teachers. I mean, to actually see that, hey, we did this and something happened because we did it in a positive direction, right?
I wonder if you could speak to the idea of what role communication, a system of communication plays in that. Because,
Yeah,
when things go well, how do we
yeah.
communicate that? When there's challenges, how do we communicate? Can you just talk about, what role the communication or does it currently and had it played for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because, I'll be honest with you, like communication systems, not a strength of mine, and that's something else, just to sort of take a step outside of this. What I also realized about leadership is you don't have to be the everything of everything, right? So that's not where my area of strength is, but it was important for us to create systems of communication and people that were reliable in terms of being responsive and providing that information. And that takes a team effort. And that's when you talk about ILTs, everyone has a role, and you can serve multiple roles, but just like, in our meetings, right, we've learned you have a timekeeper, right? You have a process observer, right? You have a note taker, all those pieces. It's the same on a team when you're trying to do this. So you need to have people that can communicate. And so Diana and Michelle are just phenomenal at that. I mean, they think ahead, which is helpful
What are
for
their
me.
roles, just so people know who are
All right.
watching?
So Diana Kistler-Ramey is our instructional program coordinator,
Mhm.
and Michelle Fry is our bilingual director. And so
Thank you.
those two, yeah, they understand the value of it. They're closer to have been in the classroom than I have. And so they recognize the importance of making sure that our teachers have information ahead of time, whether it's, when the meeting's coming up or what we're going to, the agendas are out or, hey, focus schools, after we said we were going to send you this, right? So here is the slideshow, or here is the data, here's the spreadsheet. That's huge. And I think having that as part of your system and structure has been helpful. And then also communicating the celebrations, which I think that part I have gotten better at, right? So going out and visiting and seeing things, and then providing feedback to our staff and our administrators about as I stole from you, Brett, right? I'm just going to look for treasures, and sharing those treasures with them has helped also open that line of communication and build trust in terms of the communication. So whether I am sharing, hey, guess what else we're going to ask you to try for us, or, oh my God, I saw these amazing things in this third grade classroom at this building. I think that has been beneficial.
And some things too that I've seen, first of all, I know that Jamie and the superintendent and the whole cabinet team is in schools a lot, like for days at a time as needed. That's one thing. Also, the Jamie and you guys and the team lean in at all the trainings. Every single central office person is there and engaged and learning right alongside the team. So those are huge communication things. And I like how you said that that might not be a strength of yours, so then you bring the team in to help you with the things that you have a strength in communication in one way, and they have a strength in communication in another way, is how I see it.
Yeah.
So that would be that. So we are, gosh, it's April already. And
Can I say one thing,
oh,
Kathy, about
sure,
what
of
you
course,
said?
of course.
Like, and I always like, because it's easy when you watch these from somewhere else. So someone's presenting, you're like, oh, they make it seem like it's so easy. And I want to say, like, even the little thing that you said, hey, we lean in, it took you all pushing us. And that's not a comfort zone for me, because my leadership style is like, I trust, right? I'm not a micromanager. I don't want to be in your space. I'm here when you say you need support. But I had to put myself in, more uncomfortable positions. And you learn that from a leader. That's how you grow. And you take those risks and say, I'm going to sit at this table, even if it's uncomfortable and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And it did allow me to grow, So I don't want people to think like, oh, we did what we're supposed to. It was just so easy just because we're good at it. It took pushing from you all, for all of us, not just myself, but all of us district administrators, like, find your place, find your role, and coaching us through that to say, you don't have to be there to provide information or ask some, revelating question. It's much more about you just saying, I can be the note keeper. I just want to be a part. How can I help being at this table? And so, folks that are watching this, that failure and success from sitting in very uncomfortable at times tables, and pushing yourself is what allowed us to get more comfortable with that part. None of this has happened easily. And it's not because I'm some great leader or we've got just great leaders, but it does take a collective effort to push each other, to hold each other accountable. So when you see three of your colleagues at your table get up and go visit tables, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what we do. Right. And so then you get up and you go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't always happen the first year. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're in April, and now of course, we're thinking about next year. So, one of the questions I have is, you're in year one. You guys, the district, you've developed your targeted learning focus. You've developed your SMART Eagle. You've developed your district ILT. You're going to continue with the framework. What are some hopes for next year, and how do you think this focus schools can help you with those things?
Yeah, well, I think again, like, because of the way we rolled things out and they were late, and from our perspective, they were not communicated well about how all this came together and what we were doing. It was just like, boom, restructuring schools, boom, here's a new master schedule, boom, new PD, da da da. Now we've spent a lot of time this second semester getting that information to our people. So, master schedules are, for the most part, done. They're ready. They understand what that role is. We're finishing up the PD plan so that they understand, hey, here are the days that it's going to be the same thing. I think we got a lot of appreciation for using our SIP days for teachers to actually collaborate around data, not sit and gets about, what the new bells and whistles are on the new curriculum, but hey, you're going to work with your ILTs, you're going to work with your grade level colleagues, and you are going to look at student data and you are going to make collective decisions and learn from each other. And so now they've had that experience, they valued it. We're going to honor it and keep it, because we know the impact it's had on the work that's being done and the capacity that's built. So that is being established. I think, we have our data systems, which we're tweaking, right? You have which resources you're using for benchmarking, screening, the diagnostic, how we're collecting the data in whatever format, spreadsheets, how do we measure growth that next year, like everything I'm excited because everyone now has had that experience. And so what I'm really excited about next year is what's the experience like now that you understand and we all know what the song is. Can we come back next year and really learn how to play this song well? With the implementation of IoTs, we found funding to continue to pay. One of the superintendents said, don't tell me what you value, show me where you spend your money, and I'll tell you what you value. And so our superintendent is more than willing to invest in our instructional leadership teams. And so that is huge. So they will be compensated as they have in the past, which I think is never enough for our teachers and our staff with all they do.
But important nonetheless.
Yeah, but it does show them, hey, we value, and it's just, yeah. And so the IoTs will continue. We're going to partner again with focus schools. And now that we all have a year of sort of assessment and evaluating how things went, we'll make some tweaks. I mean, we learned a ton just going along about how much they actually valued the work time. And sometimes people say that, right, because they just don't want to sit and get. But because, we were pushed to go sit and observe, we got to actually witness and watch that. No, this time is being utilized in a way that probably provides a lot of value for them.
As you were talking, I just, for our listeners, I just wanted to point out that I think Jamie's leadership, as you can hear from listening to him talk, one of the ways that he strengthens leadership and empowers teams is by being vulnerable, by being honest about his own leadership. I've always loved what you've said about creating an experience, that you just didn't want them to do a thing. You wanted it to be a leadership experience. And you say that over and over again. So I think being vulnerable, saying those same key messages over and over again, obviously a really strong reliance on the data and understanding of the data, aligning resources so that people had time to do that data cycle every single month. You guys did that. And that, I believe, is moving the work along. And then I think a big thing is letting your whole team help you, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and finding the other people next alongside you that have the strengths that you don't have. So I don't know, Brett, did you anything else that you wanted to point out from what you heard?
Yeah. So one of the things that really struck me too in what you're talking about, Jamie, is that this is a process, right? And so when you think about it that way, it's a very different thing. And sometimes, because people are so urgent because they're working with children, and that's admirable. But we want to be somewhere and not acknowledging that that's a process, and the process is where the good stuff comes from. So I really appreciate you pointing that out. And I want to just say how much Kathy and I appreciate you taking time to be with us today and share your story with others who are doing the same work you're doing across the country. And want to thank anyone who has taken the time to check in with us and watch or listen with us today. We encourage you to go to our website, focusschools.com, where you can find other podcasts like this one, also engage with our other social media platforms, and get to do maybe a two-way experience with people who are in the same roles as you are. And as always, we want to thank Jamie and anyone who's listening we have such admiration and respect for people who have chosen to give their lives to bettering the lives of children. So thank you, Jamie. It's so great to see you. Thank you for all the hard work you're doing for the Kids in Rantoul.
Yes, thank you guys. This is awesome. And I appreciate you both so much. I've learned, as I always say, learned so much with, from, and about you all. And that's what when you talk about the experience, that's what we emphasize all the time. How can you learn with, from, and about those you're here to work with and support, including our students and our families? And I think, you guys have really allowed us to create that experience amongst each other, but then also sort of in an exchange with you all. And so I value and appreciate that.
Thank you so much.